Okay. So the Biden administration announced it intends to ban menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars. Okay. I want to read this article to you so that you guys can see what I'm seeing in this whole debacle. Now, the first thing, obviously, when people hear this, they're saying, oh my gosh, infringement on my freedom, right? The government is coming in and telling me what I can and cannot do. And I'm an adult and I can make up my own mind. Totally agree with that. I do believe that this is the type of thing that, people, whether I agree with it or not, they enjoy these things. We've already banned indoor smoking. They can't smoke in bars. They can't smoke in restaurants. And so they're not exposing me to their bad habit. Their bad habit isn't causing them to become wasteful on the streets like drug addicts. And even then, that's a discussion whether or not drugs should be legalized or not, and yada, yada. But somebody smoking is really honestly none of my business, right? It's really none of my business. It's their choice. It's something that it's not infringing on me. They're no longer infringing on my health, like whatever. But this is interesting. So government getting involved, I understand that sentiment, but this gets even more interesting. So stick with me on this because this has some serious implications for the Black community in particular. And that is the exact community that the Biden administration points out and says this is intended to help them. So listen to this. So it says here that the Biden administration announced its intention Thursday to ban menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars, including menthol. Quote, banning menthol, the last allowable flavor in cigarettes, and banning all flavors in cigars will help us save lives, particularly among those disproportionately affected by these deadly products. With these actions, the FDA will help significantly reduce your initiation, increase the chances of smoking cessation among current smokers, and address health disparities experienced by communities of color, low-income populations, and LGBTQ individuals, all of whom are far more likely to use these tobacco products. Acting Food and Drug Administration Commissioner Janet Woodcock, MD, said in a statement. Okay. What does smoking cigarettes have to do with race or gender or sexuality? Somebody explain that to me. How is choosing to smoke cigarettes a complete choice? You didn't come out of the womb and it was just a cigarette in your mouth and that's part of your heritage and you can't help it. It's like the color of your skin. The pigmentation of your skin indicates how likely you are to become a cigarette smoker. That is bullcrap. The sexuality, who you're attracted to, indicates whether or not you're going to fall into the traps of smoking. Smoking is a choice. Smoking is a complete choice. You don't have to smoke, and it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is or who you want to have sex with. Honestly, smoking is 100% a choice. So for them to act like this is some sort of racial or equality issue, right? Trying to taint it with this is all about equality. This is about helping minorities who, and them pointing minorities out and pointing out LGBTQ like, well, these people need help because clearly they make bad choices. Their bad choices are they become cigarette smokers. And so they need to be protected by the rich white man in the White House and his administration. They're going to protect these minorities, these people of color, and these people of a variety of sexualities and genders. That is who this is going to help. Because they're all too stupid, apparently, to make their own, to make good choices. So we have to make those choices for them. This is a good thing, So they go on and they talk more about this. And ultimately, that is kind of the gist of it. They go on and they say one study suggests that banning menthol cigarettes in the U.S. would lead an additional 923,000 smokers to quit, including 230,000 African Americans in the first 13 to 17 months after the ban goes into effect, the FDA statement said. So they're saying, the reason why it's difficult for people to quit smoking cigarettes is because they've got these flavored cigarettes. So they're already addicted to the nicotine. And then when you flavor it, you make it even more appealing to them. And so it's even more difficult for them to quit. So you're going to get, by banning these flavored cigarettes and giving people only the stuff that smells and tastes like crap, right? you're going to get about 923,000 of them to quit just by virtue of removing the flavoring. Now, I understand that logic and I agree with that. That's probably accurate that would happen. If you said to people, look, you can't make this taste good anymore, then they're not going to want to indulge in that thing as much. But probably they still will, because nicotine doesn't exactly work like that. This isn't like McDonald's. I mean, if they said to McDonald's, look, you have to stop selling French fries, I bet a lot of people would stop eating McDonald's, because a lot of people go, I know I do, I go for the French fries. And then I get a burger while I'm getting my French fries, right? And then maybe I want to go get myself a ice cream cone too while I'm at it. So, I understand when you make something less appealing, fewer people are going to want to go do it. Nicotine's a little bit different. That's an actual drug people are addicted to. If they can't have the flavored cigarettes, they probably would just go and smoke. They would get adjusted. They would readjust or adjust to the non-flavored ones. But nonetheless, there's a bigger issue with this. So they say 923,000 people are going to quit, including 230,000 African Americans in the first 13 to 17 months after the ban goes into effect. So leave it to Joe Biden. Leave it to Joe Biden to make something illegal, all to benefit, in his mind, the Black community, right? He says, well, this is going to benefit the Black community and African Americans, because when we ban something they enjoy, a bunch of them are going to quit. Or maybe they won't, Joe. And maybe this will create an underground market. And that underground market will be illegal. And now you're going to have all these Black folks participating in an illegal market that you then can use to throw them in jail. Great. That sounds like a plan, Joe. Sounds a lot like your crime bill, your 1994 crime bill. I mean, we're just repeating history all over again with this, saying, oh, this is in your best interest. We're doing this XYZ thing in your best interest. We are turning you into a criminal for smoking flavored cigarettes. That's a good idea, according to the Biden administration. And this is really how Democrats, and my big issue with activism in general, part of the issue I have, I think activism is an integral part of America. We have to have activism. We have to have protesting. It does work. It does make headway. But sometimes the activism is completely, maybe it's good intentions, but like they say, the way to hell is paved in good intentions. And this is just kind of one of those things. Amongst many other forms of activism, and I brought that up on this show earlier this week, or maybe it was even last week. I get my days all messed up, but how Black Lives Matter, even the protesting for Black Lives Matter, and then the whole calls for defunding the police, which actually is fairly new, but previously the calls for less policing. There was a study that was released showing that from 2013 to 2019, there was less policing. That less policing did lead to fewer people being killed by police. 300 fewer people were killed by police, they estimate, in the years 2013 to 2019 because of less policing. But that less policing led to an increase in homicides of about 6,000 people, most of whom were Black. So Black Lives Matter, trying to say Black Lives Matter, I mean, that's kind of speaks for itself. And then when you end up with thousands of Black bodies in the morgue, and you've saved 300 from police, and by the way, that 300, most of them were maybe not Black, right? Because we know that the stats are mostly white, disproportionately by percentage Black, but percentage-wise, mostly white. So you've saved an X number of people, but you've killed, quite literally, thousands of people. So even though maybe the message or the idea or the thought, the thinking behind the cause was a good idea, good intentions, it's resulted in something catastrophic. And so we have to recognize that so that we can change. And we could say, okay, this didn't work exactly. So what could we do differently this next time around to get the end result we're trying to get? And that's really it. What do we need to do? How do we change to get the end result that we're aiming for? I read another study. I didn't talk about this on the show, but I could bring it up now because it kind of goes along the same lines. There was a big push starting in the 2000s. You notice this push where a lot of activists would tell adoption. They were upset with adoption, with interracial adoptions. So they were really pressuring people to not adopt, particularly activists were pressuring white couples to not adopt black children. They were saying that, these black children need to remain in the black community. You're taking them away. You're bringing them into white families. It's not okay. They were saying that there was a lot of activism against that. And even though black children in the foster care system who are up for adoption are the second largest group behind white children in the foster system available for adoption, even though the black children are still the second largest group, in the 90s, they were the second largest group adopted. And the majority of couples that adopt are white couples. So white couples were adopting white children from the foster system, and white couples were adopting black children from the foster system. And it was proportionate to the number of children in the foster care system. So majority white children were in the system, majority of the white children got adopted out. Second biggest group was black children, and that was also the second largest group adopted out. Fast forward now, and black children, even though they still are the second most available group in the foster adoption system, they are fifth most likely to be adopted right now. Fifth. So now you have black children in the foster system available for adoption, and they're going unadopted. They are one of the least likely to be adopted in the system. And that is looking like, from what has gone on, it looks like that had to do with activism. That there was this push by activists with good intentions. What they wanted was black children to go to black families where they could still have a black American experience and have people that look like them and had a shared experience. And so I can understand that sentiment. But that activism resulted in something that has been detrimental to these children. And it's okay. So you have this utopian idea of how the world should work. But in reality, look at what it's done to these children. Look at what it's done. Now, black boys are the least likely to be adopted in the foster system. And we haven't become more racist. That's not what's happened since 1990. We haven't become a more racist nation. What's happened is activists who thought they were doing something good ended up having an effect that was very negative. And that's the same thing with the Black Lives Matter study that came out. And the guy that did it was very pro-BLM. He was definitely not anti-BLM by any means. But look, the data doesn't lie. And the data shows that you have good intentions. It's backfired. Joe Biden, who wrote the crime bill in 1994, good intentions, right? It was, we're going to clean up the streets. We're going to reduce crime. And all it did was tear up families, turn people that were trying to make a living selling weed into criminals, ripping black fathers out of the homes, because the only industry, when you're poor, and oftentimes the industry that you turn to in order to make money tends to be less less savory to others, right? So it's the unsavory stuff, or illegal in this case. And that and that even goes with even legal jobs, right? So it's always the unsavory jobs that get picked up by the poor people, the jobs that other people don't want to do, from being, collecting garbage. My family scrubs feet and whatnot. But also part of that does have an element of crime, right? People turn to a bit of crime, petty crime. So things that fast forward 50 years, then it's not illegal, like selling weed now. So Joe Biden, when he's saying like, look, we're going to now ban menthol cigarettes. It's like, okay, so what are we trying to do? Are we trying to tear up families some more? Are we trying to say, when he says, well, this disproportionately, and they're saying it, this disproportionately affects black folks. They're smoking these cigarettes more than anybody proportionate wise, right? Disproportionately per population. So they're the ones, once you make this illegal, who are going to be disproportionately affected by this new ban. And what? Are they going to end up in jail for petty crimes? Then they lose their job because they're sitting in jail and they can't afford bail for something really, really stupid. They sold a pack of menthol cigarettes, or they got a little underground market going on of menthol cigarettes, and they end up in jail. They end up losing whatever job they've got. They lose custody of their children or whatever it is. no, this isn't going to work. It isn't good for a variety of reasons, not just because it infringes on our own decision making as adults and it's insulting, but also because it's going to ultimately end up harming the very people that they claim they're going to help. And that often is the case when it comes to activism. We have to be very, very careful for what we want and what we aim for and how we think we're going to get there. So